God brings a new person, somebody great, but they're so insecure. They don't feel valuable, attractive. This new person has to keep them fixed.
My very first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I want to get my head right. I do this thing called priming. Today, what creates marketing is when you don't just market, but you add value to people.
Not looking at things in a perspective way is not going to give you what you actually look for because your mind is not in the right place.
There's creating yourself the one who will make it better, the one who will lead himself and others who will find amidst the horizon, the existence of a world within. How do you visualize the road you're on, with its twists and turns, smooth terrain, rough terrain, straightaways, hills? What does it all mean? Do you find it odd that it gets more challenging as you get closer to your destination?
Go overboard to make sure they know how great they are. The problem is that's not sustainable until you get well, until you let go of what didn't work out, not carry the hurt. That wound is going to hinder you wherever you go.
Let it go so you can grow. Think about somebody that you've hurt, somebody that you've disappointed, either deliberately or inadvertently, or someone that has hurt you deliberately or inadvertently. Think about them, somebody that you really, when you think about them, the room turns red. Look at them in your mind's eye and say, I forgive you. I forgive you unconditionally. Reinterpreting our past.
The early stages of myself as an entrepreneur, I started all these companies from scratch. And then I met a gentleman, the gentleman started MTV, and we had this really cool conversation. He said, Tony, it took me, a decade and a half to really build up MTV. And he said, and then I built another company, and he said, Tony, I realized it takes like 7 years, that was his number in his head, on average, to go from scratch to build something that's really stable and strong and so forth. He goes, I realized there's only so many 7-year cycles in my body. And he said, but if I went to a company that already has been around for 7, 10, 20 years, and I bring my ability, my vision, my ability to grow that business, my ability to inspire the people, my ability to produce resourcefulness, then I get a multiplied effect. And he goes, Tony, you're the best in the world at what you do.
Understanding and knowing that we can move from where we are, that we can begin to design the kind of life that empowers us, that gives us happiness, that enable us to be on top of who we are. Knowing that as we begin to explore new horizons and new vistas in life, that as we begin to focus on developing ourselves, as we begin to elevate ourselves and not to follow the crowd, activating the thinker in us and disciplining and putting on hold the emotional part of ourselves. It's not easy, but through practice and practice and practice. Practice makes what? Absolutely not. Dismantle that belief system. Practice makes improvement. You can always better your best. You can always go beyond anything that you have ever done. You never hit a state of perfection. You're always bigger than what you do.
But damn, you work your tail off. And so he asked me if I'd come speak. One of the companies he took over was Century 21 Real Estate. And he said, why haven't you ever spoken for us? I said, because your company asked me over and over, but they're cheap. They want to pay me $100,000 and my fee's $250,000. He goes, we'll pay the $250,000. I said, no, for you, I'll do it for free. Because he's a friend, and I'm learning from him. So I came and did the speech, and afterwards he sat me back down. He goes, Tony, there are 10,000 people here. He says, I know like all my financial guys, they all look to you, but you're like a rock star for middle America. These people in gold jackets selling real estate. He goes, do you know how much our business increased in those 4 months? And I don't remember the exact number. It was like 22 or 23% or something. He goes, do you know how much money you made me? And you got nothing. He said, let me give you some advice. Go find people that have some form of momentum that you can turn it around and get a piece of that. And that's how I changed. So what I looked for were businesses that I felt tremendous emotional connection to because I felt they touched people's lives in some way.
If you're not hungry enough, you won't get enough. If you're not willing to work after it, then it's not going to happen for you in the first place. Success is not going to show up at your front door and knock on it and say, here I am. It's not coming to look for you. In fact, success is not thinking about you. Success is already doing its job. You got to be willing to do your job. Each and every day that you are breathing in this world, each and every day that you are doing something in this world, you should be focusing on getting better, not worse. You should be understanding that, hey, I can't be this same person on a day in, day out.
Because you have a timeline for when you want your dream to become a reality, that don't mean your dream misses you, baby. I'm not coach right now. I'm your conscience. You're in a fight between will and skill. I say will first because that's where you are. You locked and loaded with skill. You practicing every day. You putting in your work. You buying everything. You making the investment. You living your dream. You walking like your dream. You surrounding yourself around your dream. You got mentors, everything. You putting your work in. You got your skill. Now it's a test of your will. It's a mindset thing you in right now. It's a mindset thing because your challenge ain't moving. Your mountain is not moving. You don't feel like you're making any progress. You're not physically moving when you see everything else around you and other people around you moving.
You get the more tension life puts between you and the finish line. Almost like the universe is adamant about weeding out those who think they can skate by. What is the difference between saying you want it and really wanting it? Perhaps it's a willingness to fight through a storm just for the opportunity, to find calm and serenity in its center. This morning, as the sun was coming up, I went for a run. A nice 5-mile run down the coast, and the way I planned it out was simple. Right 2.5 or halfway up in soft sand, and then I'd stop. And I'd turn around and I'd run 2.5 back.
Type of way. I got to keep focusing and going further and going harder and going stronger and pushing myself till there's nothing else left to push forward. Everybody doesn't necessarily see what you see. In fact, everybody doesn't want what you want. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need to go after what you need. And the need is what we need to be focusing on. When you want something, make sure you understand what you want. You may get exactly what you're getting. So sometimes wanting things doesn't necessarily mean that that's for you at the moment. But what you need to do is find that self-resilience, find that self-discipline, and stop making excuses.
Thinking life should be easy, it provides oxygen to a victim mentality. And sometimes it takes these little experiences for me to refocus on these subtle realities the flat ground is not. The standard it is earned. It's a gift, it should be cherished and appreciated, because guess what? Life wasn't easy, it isn't easy, and it never will be. But I believe the differentiator is knowing that. Right, so I kept running on the slope, feet sinking into the sand. I got my teeth kicked in just a little bit longer. And life didn't end.
You're not making progress. You're in the test of your will right now, because life says it has a little more test for you. You can look at your challenge with skill, and it will see it just as that, a challenge. Or you can look at your challenge with will and see it as much.
Understand this and listen to me clearly. You may forget this face, you may forget this voice, you may forget who told you. Forget your pads out. Don't ever forget these words that I'm about to tell you. If you want to be great in this life, you only have one choice, gentlemen. You only have one choice. You can make choices that just get you remembered, or you can make choices that ultimately make you a legend.
I think the mental aspect was tougher than the physical. We're only talking 5 miles here. But when the standard changes, so does the performance. It's about just moving forward, and like poetry, with about 3/4 of a mile left, right, the beach widened it. Leveled out, the ground became harder. Each step became easier, yet I was running. But in my head, it felt like I was lying on a bed of feathers. Because when you prepare to face life's demons, when you're ready for battle, when you anticipate you'll have to give everything, any adversary that falls short of that feels like wind behind your back. Please do watch our other motivation videos on the screen now. Thank you.